Hello, and welcome to Unprofessional Engineering. My name is James.
I love when you change up your hellos. Like for a while there, you were trying to be like deep voice James, not like squeaky mouse James. And you kind of went back to squeaky mouse, but with the pause.
Did you like that?
It
A little
was
change up for you to
it
throw you
felt
off?
it felt very much like, and I'm guessing you're doing this on purpose, like the movie guy.
I don't know the movie guy.
You know, the guy that
Just
does
like
the
in
voice for
general,
movies, like
I don't
in a
like movies.
world beyond recognition, two
I,
survivors. Like,
ironically, I don't like movies. And today we're covering history of film
hold on.
technology.
What do you mean you don't like movies? We need to dig into this. This might be the whole episode. What do you mean you don't like movies?
So, movies are fine, but I hate going to the movies. Like going to the theater.
The the experience of movies you don't like.
The experience of movies is garbage. So I
But
have to
at
leave my
home,
house. I have to put on pants. I have to go to a theater. I probably have to sit by someone I don't want to sit by. It's really loud sometimes. It's really cold sometimes. I can't pause the movie to pee. I have to pay a whole bunch for popcorn that I don't eat that my wife eats. Like, it's horrible. I can't sit still for 2 or 3 hours. Like, it's the worst. Movies at
wow.
home, I can do like one every now and then, but it's not good.
You're more of a TV show kind of person, like a
Yeah.
series.
Yeah, if you can do
Okay.
something in like 15, 20 minutes for me, I'm probably good. Otherwise,
Or
probably
Game
not
of
going to have me.
Thrones, 7 years, an hour and a half, 1 hour at an hour and a half at a time,
Yeah,
or
I
that.
can do that. Yeah, if there's dragons and magic, sure, it can be as long as you want.
Oh, we digress.
We digress. That's why
But
everyone's here, right?
exactly. So, but before we get started talking about movies, you can't talk about film and movies and film technology without first talking about the phi effect or pi effect. PHI. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it, or the phi phenomenon.
Okay.
Are you familiar with this phenomenon?
I am actually familiar with it.
You are not. The
I am. Do you
phi
want me to tell you
PHI.
about
No,
it?
no, no, no. I'm going to tell you. So this is where your
Are you
eye
combining
sees
this with the
something.
persistence of vision?
They kind of go together.
Okay, that's why I was
So
asking.
one is the persistence of vision. The persistence of vision causes the brain to retain an image on the retina after it's disappeared. So it's there for like a split second. It's just like a delay between like your eye seeing it and your brain processing it, and it's still there. So if you take the persistence vision and the phi or PHI phenomenon and combine the two of those, the pi one is where when you take sequential images
I
and
think
you
it's phi,
actually
like Greek
yeah,
alphabet.
and you actually uh have them be slightly different from one to the next. So the example I saw that was easiest to understand, imagine a clock face with dots, and each time a dot disappears and goes from one to the next and one to the next. The thing that happens with that is you think it's moving when it's actually not moving.
Would you say your
Um,
brain connects the dots?
your brain connects the dots.
Very good. Well, that's excellent. Well, thank you for telling me about those things, Luke. I think you can't talk about the history of film technology without first talking about when it all started. So I saw dates as far back as 1839, which kind of felt like nonsense to me, but also I saw things in the 1890s. But here's some early techniques that maybe you could say have something to do with film technology. The first one from prehistoric times. I can only imagine cavemen sitting in a cave around the fire. Hopefully, the fire is near the entrance of the cave so it doesn't get too smoky and kill the cavemen. But this would be shadowgraphy. There's also camera obscura, which is a natural phenomenon that has been used as an artistic aid. Shadow puppetry. I can just see, like, I can do the dog with my hand.
I can't believe you're talking about shadow
And
puppetry.
like the butterfly. Well, that's like super, super early, like film technology, right? That's how they were doing these things in 200
I don't know if
BC in
I would
Central
call that
Asia.
film technology.
What about the magic lantern?
That's getting close. That is,
That's
I'll agree with
closer.
that one.
Okay, do you know about the magic lantern?
I do not.
Well, why are you agreeing with it if you don't
Because
know?
I have an idea of what it is. It's probably something with a light in the middle, and it probably spins, and there's
You're
like little
probably
cutouts.
you're familiar with its Latin name, the Laterna Magica. Is that right?
The
That's why you were
That's why I
confused.
was confused. The Latin term. You're
It's the
right.
early type of like image projector. So I think you are, familiar with it. But it was pretty old. And then the last thing that I was going to mention was what you already stole from me, the persistence of vision and the phi phenomenon, but also like going like what you said, like the clock thing and whatnot. It's just like a flip book. When we were little, at least me, I made flip books where, you would draw the same similar picture on each page and then go. Mine were terrible because I can't draw anything, but my brother was good at them because he's better than me at stuff.
We
Not
used to always do
important
that with
stuff, but
Hangmen. Like you would actually draw the Hangman, the game
that's
Hangman,
violent,
and you
so
could
I don't do
actually.
that. But
That is, I guess, hindsight,
it
isn't it?
is, it is hindsight. So that's where I'm at. Where do you want to go with this, Luke?
So I think we got to dig a little more into a little more history.
Okay.
So obviously there's these magic lanterns and some other hand
Shadow
puppets, as
puppetry.
James would talk about.
It was
But
shadows.
these still weren't like live action things that were being captured, and
Arnold Schwarzenegger was not doing shadow puppets.
exactly. So there actually had to be some kind of technology that was developed. So there was obviously still photography, and still photography takes exceptionally long periods of time to expose. And so you couldn't capture like multiple things at one time. So one of the biggest challenges that they had to do was come up with a way to do really short exposure times on film to capture sequential images. And one of the first examples, and I've seen this before, and I guess I never realized what it was. So there was a cat by the name of
Is this 1877?
Edward Maybridge, or
That's the one. Did you see it? EADWEARD.
Edward.
Edward? Like, come
I'm
on.
assuming it's like Edward. Like, they probably didn't know how to spell back then.
Yeah, that's true.
So there was this cat.
We'll call him Eddie. How about that?
He was employed by Governor Leland Stanford of California, who was a zealous racehorse breeder.
I don't know. I didn't know this was who employed him, but that surely sounds like Leland Stanford, who named Stanford University for his child.
Check out our episode on Stanford University.
Boom. Good job, Luke.
So, and he wanted to prove that at some point a galloping horse has all four hooves, if you're from Pittsburgh, off the ground at one time. And
is it not hooves?
Hooves, HOOV.
You say
hooves.
You say hoove?
Hooves.
You don't say hooves. You say.
Come on. We're missing the point here. Let's move on.
My bad.
I feel like we're focusing on my enunciation more than the show here.
Sorry.
And the naked eye can't perceive this because it's at a frame rate that we just can't see.
And I can, but
yeah, and it's moving, so you can't like freeze frame a horse running. So finally, after all this to do and backwards and forwards, like they couldn't imagine back then that a horse would be in midair. In 1877, he set up 12 separate cameras along a Sacramento race course. Had wires connecting all of them. Had wires connecting all of them. Had a horse run down the track, and pow, 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 pow. Took all these 12 snapshots of the horse running. Put them all together, threw them on your rotating magic disc, essentially.
Rotating disc, yeah.
And whenever they turned them at just the right rate, you could see the horse galloping. And indeed, the horse's feet are off the ground all at one time, nothing touching.
It's like magic. It's like a magic lantern.
It's exactly what it is, a magic lantern.
Fun fact for you, Luke.
Please.
That same year, if you can believe it, Thomas Edison invented the phonograph, which was a device used for recording and reproducing sound.
Mm-hmm.
Just imagine the possibilities, Luke, if you combined these technologies together.
What do you think would happen, James?
I don't even know. I just don't even know. What I think might happen in 1891 is the Edison Company successfully demonstrating a prototype of the kinetoscope, which enabled one person at a time to view a moving picture. which then could also have sound applied to it. Before we go on with any more amazing information about the kinetoscope or anything else, we really need to stop and take a break for a word from our sponsor.
I have to assume it's like Netflix because they're the only people that make movies anymore.
Well, fortunately, they could afford to do that now that they're charging more money and putting commercials on their platform.
They're changing the price. Didn't they just do that like a couple years ago?
That's all they do is change the price. And they're cracking down on sharing passwords, which I would never do.
I don't.
And they're also adding commercials. And some of their shows they're releasing weekly instead of all at once so that I can binge. I hate them. Anyways, I'll keep my subscription anyways. 2 shout outs for us. Number 1, KCR.
K-Dog.
It's a C.
C-Dog.
You should do one on renewable green energy. Not specifically per se the different sources or options available, but rather an examination of their life cycles. When getting my master's in systems engineering, good job for you, I took a green energy elective, and it was very interesting to say the least. Short synopsis, Luke. Everyone's all gung-ho about solar power and electric vehicles. They are great while they're in use, but when examining the whole life cycle, like the production of them and the life retirement, they're actually the highest polluting energy source, is what Casey says. So that would be interesting. So I added that to the list.
You can't do much with giant expended lithium batteries that you can't hold a charge on anymore. You can do some recycling, but we'll save that for an episode.
That's how my patio outside, that's what I use for the floor. It's just expended batteries. Yeah.
Nice.
Tucker J also wrote in.
Tucker J.
That's T-Dog.
That's a name you don't hear very often. I like that.
Tucker J. Tucker.
Just Tucker. Okay. I like that. It's a good name.
I think so. It's strong. Yeah. Hey guys, love your podcast. Longtime listener that keeps coming back because I haven't found a better podcast to listen to while I'm at work.
Fact.
Does that mean he's found better podcast to listen to while not at work, is what I wonder. Anyways, I'm currently at BYU in their mechanical engineering program, and this gets me through the days sometimes.
Brigham Young, right? BYU?
Yeah. That's the one. An idea maybe that I find interesting would be off-the-grid living and the engineering you could do. Anyways, love listening to you guys. I think we've done something about off the grid, but I'm sure Luke would love to explore this in great detail.
At a minimum, you and I have argued about doing this one, and you're like, no, it's dumb. And I was like, no, it would be amazing.
Was my voice that deep when I said it was dumb?
No, it was, it's dumb. It's kind of like that more.
You're the worst. All right. Well, thank you all for writing in. If anyone else wants to write in, tell us that my opinions are dumb and that my voice is squeaky. If you want to, I don't know, tell us anything about how great we are, how bad we are, how nice I look today, how bad Luke looks, anything like that. Go ahead and email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com.
And don't forget to subscribe, like, share. We love the reviews. And as always, you can tell your smart devices to play the Unprofessional Engineering Podcast anytime. And also, don't forget to stop by the Unprofessional Engineering store and pick yourself up some sweet swag.
Sweet swag. Oh, you can actually buy stickers on that page. I've quit announcing free stickers because 1, we're running out. 2, I never send them. And 3, I just got an angry email about how long someone's been waiting for free stickers. So
they're free, people.
Sorry. Yeah. All right. Moving on, Luke. Let's see. The first public kinetoscope, which I just talked about from the Edison Company, the demonstration took place in 1893, 2 years after the invention. In 94, the kinetoscope was a commercial success with public parlors established around the world. Let's see. This is apparently a big one. The first to present projected moving pictures to a paying audience were the Lumiere brothers in 1895 in Paris. They used a device of their own making, the cinematograph, whatever, which was a camera, a projector, and a film printer all in one. We call that a triple threat.
We do. And do you think the band, the Lumineers, is named after these people?
I don't see how it could not be the case.
That's we did this. We did the research for this a while ago, and I'm just putting that together. I was listening to the Lumineers the other day. I'm guessing
Yeah,
that's where they came from, right?
I'm with you.
I'm going to jump to, and I just have a whole timeline of stuff that happened, and then we can get into some
Hit
more
me.
recent stuff. Are you cool with that? So I'm going to continue on after your 1895 cinematographer, however you pronounce it.
I like that.
February 2nd, 1912, the first known color film, Our King and Queen of India. So this was a silent documentary that was shot that predated The Wizard of Oz in color.
That's old. But
Now
wait, I
that
thought the Wizard of Oz was always. Oh, I've been lied to my
I
whole
don't know
life.
this. I think it may have been like when it was like recorded versus when Wizard of Oz actually like was I'm not exact because I thought the exact
Um,
same thing too, that it was the Wizard of Oz, but it was but this was silent, so this was before sound was added. So the Wizard of Oz was probably the first movie with audio that was probably in color and audio. Maybe I don't
can
have
I
that
back up
detail.
just for a moment,
Oh,
only
please
because I have a
do.
fun fact? So, the Great Train Robbery came out, and it was this huge box office success, right? And this is when people started setting up theaters for people to go to so they could rake in the big bucks, unlike today. But a fun fact is, with the popularity of films, this encouraged investors to make permanent theaters around the country called Nickelodeons.
Because it was a nickel to go.
Yeah.
I never knew that. I didn't know that's where Nickelodeon. I always wondered where the name Nickelodeon came
Yeah,
from.
see, me too. And I love Nickelodeon. So,
You would,
yeah.
because you're an adult male
I'll tell you a
that watches
story
cartoons.
about Reptar someday. It's
Reptar.
not
What are we talking about?
Reptar is a dinosaur that was on Rugrats. And at one point in time, I got into an establishment that was charging a cover solely on having Reptar on my t-shirt. So it was fantastic. Continue on, Luke.
And again, just continuing down. 1915, the film Birth of a Nation was released. This early film was one of the first in theaters, becoming a global post for filmmaking techniques. They had large battle sequences, fade ins,
Ooh,
fade outs, the first
nice.
close ups. Like this was like one of before like um, they obviously didn't have like optical zooms and like they basically cameras were just stationary and you would, or maybe they're on a gimbal, but this actually took advantage of all of that kind of technology, fading, close-ups.
Imagine like fade in, fade out being like this groundbreaking new thing. And now we basically can stumble into doing it on like our
Mm-hmm.
desktop like products that are super easy to use. That's so
Mm-hmm.
funny.
The next one that I want to get to, and if you have any other ones
Oh, keep
before this,
going.
um, so the first film with sound. This was interesting. This seems like a really long time. So this is 18 or 19, I keep on saying 18, 1927, and it would better be with sound. It was called The Jazz Singer. It was released as the first feature-length film with sound, or they called it a talkie
A
back in the
talkie,
day.
yeah. So that
And
was using the Technicolor 3-strip, right?
mm-hmm.
So there was a process. There was the 2 and then the 3. These were different things, and of course, it had to do with the different strips that they were using. But anyways, it was in development the 3-color camera, the Technicolor 3 strip, which would revolutionize the industry, like you're talking about with this film. This invention, the reason I'm bringing it up, was attributed to 3 graduates of the university known as MIT.
Oh, gee.
I hate to say this, Luke, but MIT might be the most important
It
technology
it
university of all
it
time.
could be. It
It
could be.
hurts my soul, but go ahead.
So you talk about Technicolor. So here's where the Wizard of Oz connection comes in.
Oh, okay.
1939, the release of Wizard of Oz further popularizes color movies. There was already color movies. There was more detailed coloring. The process, you mentioned it, called Technicolor. It was considered too expensive. That's why previously the
Oh,
color
is
was,
that right?
yeah, and I think what it was, there were color they were more like sepia. So like kind of like that tannish
Yeah.
color, or yellowish color. Like that was considered a color movie until the 3-color method was popularized, and essentially it became like every Hollywood movie after The Wizard of Oz that was a big budget movie was shot in Technicolor.
Interesting. So what I found interesting was around that same time, like the late 30s, something else in film began to grow in significant popularity. And that would be what we call the television, which I love. Thank you. So to counteract the television's popularity, about 2 decades later, Fox, it's funny to see these same names around, right? Fox developed a new imaging system known as the CinemaScope. And this method takes really large images and compresses them to a normal size, and the standard was 35 millimeter frames. And so to achieve this ratio between like 3.66 and 2.39 times wider than high, it takes this special anamorphic lens to make this happen. And the introduction of the CinemaScope also inaugurated a new film era thereafter, characterized by using the panoramic format. So kind of like the traditional film format that we see today.
Next up, this is the last specific. Well, no, I do have a couple other specific movie references, but this one, 1941, Citizen Kane is released. Orson Welles' landmark film. Boatloads of techniques, super great acting, super great directing, super great cinematography. And to this day is still considered like one of the best when it comes to filmmaking, which I don't think I've ever seen Citizen Kane. Have you seen Citizen Kane? I don't even know. I'm assuming it's about a citizen of some nation.
I think he's an attorney or something.
And his last name is Kane, or he uses a cane.
I think it's with a K.
Yeah. So, oh yeah. So then that wouldn't
K-dog.
be he uses a cane. I've
he
never
might
seen
use a
it,
cane as well,
because he could be old with a C.
Right.
Sometimes I don't know why we.
This is spiraling. Luke,
spiraling.
You know what would save all of this is us taking a break for this week's Luke's rant.
And you know what saves everything, James? A Star Wars reference. So we're talking about movies, and I had a proud father moment the other day, and so obviously I've watched the Star Wars movies with my daughter. We did them in chronological order of the events, like not when they were released.
Not when they were released. Oh,
yeah, so we did 1, 2, 3. So we did them in the order so she wouldn't get confused and know who was who and why was why. And so we watched all those years ago. And about 2 weeks ago, we were thinking about what movies we wanted to watch. And she wants to watch Phantom Menace. And I was like, yes! Because I don't know about you, I personally, I grew, when I was in high school, I think I forget when they came out.
You were not in high school.
I don't remember how old I was. Either way, I just remember it was one of the first big CGI, multi-universe.
It was huge.
It was amazing. And hindsight, it looks cheesy, but I think if they would have done Star Wars 1, 2, and 3 now with the technology, they'd be amazing, and so I love those 3 Star Wars movies. I think that the
unpopular opinion, huh?
I know. I think they say the acting was bad, but I mean, this is the guy that became Darth Vader. He's gonna have some issues, and he's gonna be immature, and he's gonna be. So they always complain about the way he acted, but he was acting like a terrible teenage 20-year-old guy. And I think the acting was great. I thought that the stories were good. I'm not a huge Jar Jar fan, but when I
was gonna spring Jar Jar up.
She did that, I was like, oh, that
is a nice moment.
All the Star Wars movies, she wants to watch Phantom Menace. I was like, yes.
That's good. That's very nice. I feel bad for. Oh, no, not bad. On one hand, it's great that there's so much Star Wars stuff out now, right? And that it always keeps getting dumped out there. But remember just the buzz around those 3 movies. It had been so long since anything Star Wars happened. And then those 3 came, regardless of what you felt about them. Just the buzz around them was so huge. And I guess that is a good thing about movies, right? That's the kind of emotion that it can evoke.
You
I
got
think
it.
I think I got it right.
I think so.
Well, I liked that, Luke. Great memory for you. I hope you hold on to that one. She's hitting tires off of curbs in a
Yes.
truck.
Uh,
Real
I
quick
don't.
from
Yeah,
me, a fun
please.
fact for you. With the advent of the optical sound, the aspect ratio was adjusted to 1.37 to 1. And this is known as the Academy ratio. And it
Ooh,
was officially approved by the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Science, the Oscars type people, in 1932.
interesting.
One other thing I wanted to mention, we're talking about a lot of like films, people's being recorded, whatnot. But with the release of Steamboat Willie back in 1972, Walt Disney began what was known as the golden age of animated films. So the genius of animation introduced a technique that would be emulated by many other producers around the time. The method, known as sound cartoon, allowed to synchronize cartoons with sounds. The multiplane camera developed by Mr. Iwerks was also introduced by Disney and allowed to provide traditional animation with at least the time three-dimensional effects. So very cool. And so this type of video camera was used in Snow White. So that was the first feature film for that.
Speaking of firsts, the very first movie to ever use 3D CGI in film was Future World in 1976.
I've never even heard of Future World.
I heard that there was an updated version of that they released a couple of years ago, I believe, but yeah, it was one of the first times that computer generated imagery or CGI was used, and now it's like everywhere. I mean, my guess is half the actors aren't really there most of the time in most movies.
I'm surprised we haven't seen any deep fakes of ourselves yet with our growing fame.
I don't know if you'd want a deep fake of me.
I mean,
Like,
I know I would not want that, but someone out there might. If any
and
of you know about deep fakes, maybe you could hook us up.
And then the only other two that I want to mention, and I have a couple things on like frame rate, and I have a fun game to play. But so it didn't happen until 1983. This I have a hard time believing. The first consumer grade camcorder. So now, you know, film and the ability to capture things comes out of the hands of people. And it was the beta movie BMC 100P was released, and you could shoot your own tapes on Betamax.
How cool is that? Think about now, if you were to look at like a percentage, I'd love to see over time the percentage of film, like videos that were made by the industry versus people. And as that number starts to drop when people start getting home camcorders and whatever and family films and whatnot, and now all of a sudden people have cell phones, and probably 99.9% of crap that's recorded is from people just around the world doing it on their own.
Last two bits. The first high def or video, technically, not film anymore, was Julia and Julia in 1987. Never heard of it. And then lastly, 1995, I can't believe it's been this long. Toy Story is the first feature length 100% CGI film.
With the CAPS system, the computer animation production system. Very impressive. Yeah. It has been a long time.
And then the iPhone ruins everything in 2007.
iPhone didn't ruin everything.
No, it didn't ruin everything. Just ruined film.
I can think of a few things it's improved. Quick shout out before you get into anything else. I know you said there was a little fun game here. Shout out to our number one fan, Nathan, who wrote in with this idea.
Oh,
Nathan,
yeah, that's right.
You remember him? Yeah. So he wrote in with it. He thinks he might be interested in pursuing something in film as he grows up and gets older. So
just make sure you can make some money, Nathan. You don't want to be a starving artist.
His dad's an engineer. Tell him to keep working harder or plan not to retire. Either way, you can pursue your passions.
So we talked about the phi effect, right?
I remember it well. 30 minutes
do we want to do a rant, or do we want to jump into the phi effect and frame rate?
Did we not do a rant? I thought we did a rant.
No, we did do the rant. I'm sorry. I'm looking at my card right here. You're right. So frame rate is the rate at which per second, there's an individual static frame like on the screen. We talked about at the beginning the phi effect.
Yeah.
The standard for most movies has been somewhere around like 24 frames per second for movies. Sometimes like TV shows are a little bit less, a little bit higher. The very first time a movie was ever shot higher than the industry standard was Peter Jackson's Hobbit. So this is 2012, 2013. He shot this at 48 frames per second. So basically, he was doubling the standard frame rate. And the theory was, if I have more frames, the movie will be smoother. There'll be less, your brain has to make the connections between the images, and it'll be a richer, more visual experience. And interesting, most people that watched it did not like the way it looked. And it's really difficult.
Just not what they were used to, or?
And that's exactly what they said. They said everybody's used to seeing things in 24 frames or 30 frames per second. And what was happening was it was almost too realistic. Like when you're watching something on television or you're watching in a movie theater, like, you know, that's a flat screen, and you know that, like, your brain knows that. But whenever you bump the frame rate up and it's that realistic, your brain has to do, like, you almost think that you're just like looking through a window at live action happening, and it does something with your brain. And they say it takes about an hour to get used to like watching it. Your brain starts to make adjustments. So good thing.
But then you're forever adjusted. Like,
no. Like each time you do it, because even now most movies most movies nowadays are still in 24 or 30 frames per second. Huh. I think some newer ones are higher, like sports, they say, are really good. Like,
yeah, sports and like video games.
Sports are weird, because I actually watched a football game not all that long ago on a really good HD. Like, I have an old HD TV. It doesn't go up to the frame rates.
Yeah.
But like, it looks weird. Like, it feels like I can see the actual football on, like, it's very weird watching high frame rate football compared to what I normally
you
watch.
Feel like you can see the football?
Yeah, like it looks like it's really
you can't
there.
Normally see a football?
No, but it looks like it's really on the screen, like a physical football is there. It's
like
not
it's going to come out and you're going to catch it for the touchdown.
Maybe.
Which the Steelers could use. Chase Claypool.
Chase Claypool, you're out, jerk.
I think I know someone who'd be happy about that, but go ahead.
All right,
we have a game to play.
We
Let's
do have a
get
game
into
to play.
this.
So this is the 100 best movies of all time, according to timeout.com. So this isn't recent. There's some recent ones. There's some old ones. And I just want to see if you or I have any in the top 10 or in the bottom 10.
I bet I got some bottoms.
I'm just going to run through these pretty quickly. So the number one, 2001 Space Odyssey. Yes or no? Do you like it? Have you seen it? Think it's number one? I've seen it. I like it. Not my number one. That is the number one all time. Number two, Godfather. I love The Godfather.
Yeah, Godfather.
It's definitely in my top 10. I don't know if it's number two, but it's in my top 10.
I don't know if it's my top 10, but it's good. I understand why it would be. Yeah.
The wedding scene.
My buddy's going to be so mad. Jimbo's going to be so mad at all of this. Go ahead.
Why? Wow.
He's a big movie guy, and I'm like, oh no. I'm like, The Godfather. I've never heard of it. Like,
we were talking about earlier. Citizen Kane is number 3.
I knew it would be in there.
I've never seen it, so I can't comment on it. You've seen it? No.
No.
Number 4. I think some of these are French movies and like international. This isn't just US.
Those aren't good.
It's Janine Delaman. 20. Yeah. Next. No. Okay. This one I like. Raiders of the Lost Ark is number 5 all time.
Man,
I love it.
I love anything
it's
with
definitely
actual
top 10.
Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones.
Yeah, I'm a big Harrison Ford, other than Crystal Skull. Okay.
Was he in that?
Yeah. Number 6, I can't even pronounce it. La Dolce Vita. Seven Samurai. Have you seen
Never
this?
saw it.
So
No.
it's a black and white 1954.
Why
I've
would I
seen it.
watch that?
I've seen it. It's pretty good. It's subtitled, so it's I got to slow it down to read it, but
Next.
probably not my top 10. Number
It's like an
8.
8-hour movie for you.
It is. Jerk. 8, In the Mood for Love. I've never seen it.
Never heard of it.
This one you would know.
This list is
2007.
terrible.
There Will Be Blood.
I've heard
You
of that.
seen There Will Be Blood?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, it's a Daniel Day-Lewis. Number 10, Singing in the Rain. Come on, you've seen Singing in the Rain.
Saw that either.
No? Singing in the Rain. I wouldn't say it's
I know
top
that
10,
song.
but it's up there with like my Mary Poppins, like Disney kind of thing. Okay, now we're gonna go to the bottom 10. So this is 90,
probably where I reside.
Yeah, so this is 90 through 100. So the 90th all-time movie. A Woman on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown. I have no idea what that is. Boyhood, 2014. Ethan Hawke. No,
Never heard of it.
Okay, I've seen it. Not great. The Discreet Charm of the Borgonese. I can't even pronounce the words in the movie. Path to Glory, 93. Secret Lies, 96. I don't know any of these. You don't know these. The Sweet Smell of Success, 95. Don't know it. 96. The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. No. Nashville, 97. Come on. Don't
Can you
look
like search
now.
movies up? Like
Bonnie and Clyde. No. And number 100, Get Out. So this is the 2007.
Is Human Centipede in this list? No? Well, this explains a lot of why none of my movies are on here.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch in the middle that I do like, but I'm not going to go through each and every one of them. I do like that. So Toy Story, 75 all time.
Oh, I can live with that.
Yeah.
I can see it higher.
So
very good. Anything else you want to add in here, Luke?
I think that's all I got.
Awesome. Well, hopefully you all learned something about shadow puppetry and magic lanterns and who knows what else. If we missed anything, I'm sure we did. So don't send any emails telling us that. Instead, send us emails telling us what a great job we did. Go give us reviews, do all sorts of great things. Hit us up at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com. And until next time,
see it.